Εξομολογήστε τον Κύριο διαγρατός, αλληλούια, ότι στον αιώνα το έλεος αυτού, αλληλούια.
I know the Bible.
How many books in the
I
Bible?
know Bible.
How many books in the
So
Bible?
many
How
books,
many
you
books in
know.
the Bible?
Nobody bloody read it.
What's the first book in the
Nobody
Bible?
book it. Nobody read
Genesis.
it.
There's a different amount of
Nobody
books in
read
the
it.
Bible. Depending on which Bible you're
66,
talking about.
Yeah.
76, no,
Idiot.
66,
They're
76,
born bloody
78,
idiot.
or
They're
84.
dying
Okay, which one of them is
idiots.
true then?
They're ignorant.
I believe the Eastern Orthodox canon is to be true. Because I believe the Eastern Orthodox Church is the infallible authority given to the Apostle Peter and is built on the foundation of the church given to by Christ in Matthew 6.
It's broken, that's why.
I got a spell.
He's rejecting every
I'll
other
bring it next
church.
week.
Is it?
I reject that any other church
Cheers, man.
has claimed to be the one.
Is it heavy?
Yeah,
Based on
somewhat,
books.
yeah.
So I've already got.
It's tall though.
And the continuity of theology coming out of the first
Because the other two are quite heavy.
to modern day
Yeah.
society, to which we see, for example, schisms within the early church.
I never have
More
enough
or
time.
less time to carry
It's a
everything.
continuation of theology.
I don't know what I'm
You're
talking about.
talking about the theology that Jesus and his disciples preached.
Yeah, posed and then exemplified by the early church.
Okay, so here's the the main issue that you Christians have.
Yes.
You cannot prove that the Bible properly carries on the theology of Jesus.
In what sense?
Well, the argument that Muslims have against Christianity is that a
Well,
lot of
sorry, because you're saying Muslim as if it's a third-person perspective. So, what position do you hold to?
no, Muslim.
Oh, okay, so you're a Muslim. That's good. That's good to know.
So the argument we have is that the Bible has lost a lot of Jesus' messages, and people have added in and taken out things.
Absolutely.
The fact that there's different versions of the Bible with different
Well,
books.
not to
is proof
confuse,
itself.
not to confuse versions with
With translation.
with completeness. So what do I mean by this is when we spoke about different canons of the Bible, we're just going to say that, for example, me as an Eastern Orthodox that holds the 78 books in the canon of the Bible, if I were to go to a Protestant with the 66 books, those 66 books to which I share in common with a Protestant is going to be identical in my canon to which I possess those 66 books. So they're going to be identical but not complete.
But that's still a different version.
No, it's not version.
As I just
okay,
said,
so think about
that
this.
their Bible has things that's been
one
taken
second.
out of it.
Hold on, 1 second. So think of canon as completeness. So let's say I have 100%.
No. That's what you want to think of it.
No. Rather, I'm giving justification and rationale. So
Yeah.
they hold to an
That's
identical.
the way you want to think about it. That's the whole
Exactly.
point.
So
you
if,
can't force
if
me to
I,
think about it
If
that way.
I pose something to you,
Yeah.
you either have to negate it as not being the
I'm
case.
the one who posed it to you that the Bible's a different version. So this is my argument.
Exactly.
Here.
So when you say versions, firstly, I can identify that if we hold to this so-called logic, it's going to really bite Islam in the backside, as it were. So
The different Bibles has nothing to do with Islam.
well, exactly. So I'm going to bring that up afterwards, after I resolve the issues to which you posed within Christianity. So different things. Firstly, canons. Canons is just going to be understood as the completeness of the collection of scripture.
That's how you understand
Bible,
it.
hold on 1 second. Bible within the Latin word just means collection of books. So a collection of books, there's going to be a level of completeness of these collection of books, right?
Yeah.
So if there's 66 books within the Protestant canon, to which I hold to all those 66 books, they're going to hold to a level of incompleteness to their Bible. But they hold to identical books within their Bible.
Which one is older?
My canon.
So then my point is right that the Protestant book has books that's been taken out of it. Then.
Exactly. But
That's my point. I
it's
was
an
arguing
incomplete
it's not-
canon. It's an incomplete canon.
So things have been taken out of the Bible.
Yes.
That's my point. You tried to argue against
Exactly.
it. We can't. So why
Because
did you waste 2 minutes
it's
arguing
not
against it?
versions, rather completeness. And rather than saying that there's corruption, that there's books been removed, these books, firstly by the reformers, were held in high regard. They just didn't hold them to be divinely inspired as to a degree as the previous canon. Like, for example, you would see reformers like Martin Luther reading from Second Maccabees. So we still see within the Reformed theology people taking from these books and reading as historical evidence towards the fact of these prophets. Secondly,
So why is it that
of
they don't
course,
think it's divinely
one
inspired?
second. Secondly, of course, I disagree with a Protestant. I flat out reject that they have the fullness of the faith. So why exactly is it a sequitur for you to pose that different people exegete or take from a different Bible than myself?
Who, me?
Yeah, what exactly?
No.
What exactly is the
So
argument?
you're doing a straw man argument. I never said I'm taking from their Bible or their exegesis. I'm just pointing out the fact that different Bibles have different amount of
What does
books,
that prove?
Which means there's been alterations.
No, it doesn't. So, for example, if I were to
What's
write
your name?
now,
What's your name?
just call me Bob.
Bob. Oh, you're another Bob. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So let's say right now I copy down the Quran right now.
Yeah.
But then I remove a few surahs.
That's an alteration.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
is it the alteration within Islam? Because I'm not a Muslim. I'm not transmitting.
I never said it was an alteration within Christianity.
Exactly.
I'm focusing mainly on the book itself.
So the contention is really going to be, has the Christian tradition successfully upheld and the preservation of the text itself?
No.
Pose me the argument.
No. As I said, even if your book is the oldest, which I'm not arguing against,
Yes.
which even if it is true that all of the books should be there,
Yes.
which I'm not arguing against, my main argument is there's no way of you proving that the teachings of Jesus have been carried on into the
Absolutely, I can. So, for example, we see the early patristics talking of Christ, and these are going to be students of the apostles of Christ themselves. So, for example, very famously, within Revelation 8, it talks about people that bear witness to the faith, right? And one of the people identified as the one sent to the churches is Polycarp. Polycarp is a student of John himself, the beloved disciple. And in his writings, in his 12 letters and epistles, he writes, he references John's work. For example, it says, "For we do not
So your
believe."
source is a student of a student.
A student of John, who is a student of Christ, correct?
So the student of a student.
Yes,
That's your source.
yes.
Jesus Christ has nothing to do with Islam. Jesus Christ has
Very
nothing
weak
to do
argument.
with Islam.
Well, what's exactly weak with
Because
that?
look, here's the thing. If I was to pose the same argument to you, that you have Abu Bakr,
Yes.
right, who is a student of Muhammad, right, and then you have, let's say, for example, a guy named Ahmed, who's a student of Abu Bakr,
Yes.
right, and I said, well, Ahmed wrote that Abu Bakr said X, Y, Z, you wouldn't take that as a valid
I
argument.
don't deny Hadith science as a principle, not sound science. I disagree with that. Rather, I would say because I reject the premise that Muhammad is a prophet of God. Any
He's
events?
a prophet. It's easily provable.
Can I demonstrate that he's not a prophet then?
Go ahead.
Okay, so premise one. In order for a prophet to be within a prophetic tradition, this prophet must confess an identical God to the previous prophets, i.e.
Which he did.
Yes, good. Premise two. In order, it is entailed that if a prophet's message is true, the prophethood of that person must also therefore be true. The Quran is true, therefore Muhammad's true, right?
Islam is the Antichrist.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Premise three. We cannot use the Quran to demonstrate Muhammad is a true prophet, and then you therefore use Muhammad to demonstrate the Quran, as it's circular reasoning.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, conclusion one, there must be an independent way of verifying continuity with Muhammad as a previous prophet, is if we agree within premise one, it is a necessary precondition of being a true prophet to possess continuity.
You just stepped on your own toe. You know, I have a very funny saying when I argue with Christians.
Yes.
Is that Christians become atheists when they argue against Muslims.
Well,
And
hold
you
on.
end up shooting yourself
Do you
in the
agree?
foot.
Do you agree that Christianity has more holes than Swiss cheese, for example?
Say it again?
Do you agree that Christianity has more holes than Swiss cheese? It's got so many contradictions, it's not preserved
Yeah,
at all.
it does, it does.
Okay, beautiful. So if that's the case, for you to say that, oh, you have the issue in Christianity, and you're posing the same issue within Islam, therefore it's a non sequitur. That's called a tu quoque, my friend.
That's not what I said.
So if you've agreed to the first three premises, the conclusion therefore follows that we must find an independent source to verify the continuity of Muhammad in order for the Quran to be true.
No, the Quran is an independent source.
Okay, so can I produce a reductio for why I believe an inductive case for the Quran to be true? I.e.,
go ahead.
if you're going to say, if you're going to use if you use a dependent source, i.e. the Quran,
Yeah.
which is of Muhammad, to prove that Muhammad's a true prophet.
He
you-
relayed the information of the
Yeah,
Quran.
yeah, yeah. So if you use miracles, for example, it's just going to allow that other religions are therefore true.
I'm not using miracles. I
Okay,
don't
so
say
what
anything about
exactly are you using to deduce that the Quran is of God?
information from the Quran, which at the time no one could have known or verified.
How does this not equally prove, for example, that an angel or a Satan gives this message?
Because, okay, as a Christian, would you agree that only God can see the future?
Well, rather, I
Actually, a very simple question. Don't go on a rant.
So I believe that this is a loaded question, not analogous to what
No.
Muhammad-
Okay, do you believe that only God is all powerful?
Yes.
Okay, was that a loaded question or was that a simple yes or no
So
question?
rather, when it comes to
You rant a bit too
no,
much.
okay. So rather with knowledge, for example.
It's a simple yes or no question.
So with knowledge.
Okay,
Well, no, hold on.
Bob,
so
Bob,
it's not if
Bob.
I introduce an intermediate.
Bob, you rant a bit too much. That's the only issue.
Okay,
You're a very
so-
smart guy, but you
so-
rant too much.
okay,
You answered my question earlier, right?
yeah.
A while ago. Is only God all powerful?
Correct.
Yes, it's not a loaded question.
Correct.
Can only God see the future?
Not really. So what I mean
Okay,
by
have a
this.
nice day, my guy.
So what I mean by this is that Satan.
Look. In order for us to go ahead, you have to actually answer the questions and
Yeah.
not go off on
Do you
a
know what
rant.
do you know what a false dichotomy is?
Go ahead, Bob. Explain it to me.
So I believe.
What's that around your neck, by the way?
It's a rosary, and these are icons.
You believe Jesus died on the cross, right?
Yes.
So you're walking around with his murder weapon.
Exactly, because I believe that according to Luke chapter 20, he was a humble servant that died for a wager for us all.
So you're walking around with his murder weapon.
Exactly, I should. So are you going to divot the conversation to why I hold
No,
and venerate the cross?
I'm just giving you a taste of your own medicine of how you go off on tangents.
I don't go on
Actually, a very
tangents.
simple question.
Rather, I'm staying on the
Is
subject
God-
matter.
Can only God see at 100% the future?
I can give you an argument for why Satan has this ability.
Go ahead.
So premise one, Satan is atemporal or is not visible to us. Do you agree?
I agree.
Premise two, Satan to a degree can tempt us. Do you agree?
I agree.
Okay, so conclusion, therefore, Satan can operate and tempt us into doing things to which, therefore, he can prophesize events to which, therefore, he can make sure can happen.
You're waffling, Bob.
I'm not waffling. Okay,
No,
what did I say? What did I say?
Let me rebuttal.
Do you know what their syllogism is?
Let me rebuttal.
Yes.
Are you going to actually allow people to
Of
rebuttal?
course.
Okay, my rebuttal to that is this.
Yes.
What you just explained is extremely intelligent planning and foresight. That's not what I asked you. I didn't ask you if God has foresight.
But like when you say-
Let me answer, Bob.
Yes.
I didn't ask you if God has foresight. I asked you if only God can see the future.
But no,
it's not a
but
loaded
with
question.
prophecies, they are posed. Oh, okay.
If you're not able to have a simple dialogue with answering a simple
Simple
question,
dialogue on religion. So
simple
is
question,
religion simple?
Can only God?
Is religion simple?
I believe it should. Us humans make it complicated.
Wait, okay, so
by nature it is simple.
What exactly is the argument for religion being simple? Because I don't even believe that Allah is you don't even, as a Sunni Muslim, I suppose, you don't even believe that God is ontologically simple. You believe that He's composed of parts.
No, we don't.
Okay, do you affirm DS, divine simplicity? Quick tangent. You don't affirm.
Well, you just say we believe that God is composed of parts. I've heard that dumb argument before.
Yeah, so rather
present the argument of why He's
okay.
composed
So
of parts.
okay. How about this? We'll argue about this in a moment. But to say that you reject divine simplicity, ironically, therefore, shows.
I never said I rejected anything.
Did you accept divine simplicity?
Listen, you want a yes or no question? Oh, that's a loaded question, Bob.
Well, rather
That's
you
a
do or
loaded
you
question.
don't. Well, it's a true dichotomy.
You see how it feels.
It's a true
Can I answer a simple
it's a
question?
true dichotomy. You affirm that you reject as a Sunni Muslim that God's ontology is
Do
going
you
to be
accept
simple.
or reject that only God can see the future with 100% accuracy? I'm not talking about foresight or extreme intelligence.
So I believe that what the Quran would posit as prophecy.
I didn't ask you about the Quran.
Okay.
I'm not asking you about a specific religion.
So I believe that
and
you're
God in general.
Okay. So I believe that we can say that, for example, angels can possess knowledge of the future. So I don't entirely reject.
That's not what I asked you.
Yeah, you said God exclusively.
I didn't say possess knowledge of the future.
Yes.
Because technically speaking, prophets possess knowledge of the future
Okay,
because
so
God tells
if
them.
the
That's not what I asked you.
okay,
Listen to me,
okay.
Bob. Can only God see the future with 100% accuracy?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for answering that. So it brings us back to the question when you asked me to prove that that Muhammad is actually a prophet.
Yes.
Right? You see, we're making way now.
Yes.
Okay, you finally answered the question. So to prove it using the Quran.
Yes.
Correct? So there's things in the Quran that was said that at the time they could not verify, and no other people. I
Like
could
what?
say it's impossible to have known that.
Like what?
The universe expanding.
Okay, so I believe that firstly the Quranic science about the beginning of the universe.
I never said the beginning of the universe. I
Well,
said the universe
hold on.
expanding.
Because in order to say that the Quran is correct on science, if there's a proposition within the Quran that contradicts this notion, it therefore removes the possibility that this agent is all-knowing or all truthful or all good.
Brother, I said something very simple. The universe expanding. Stop
Yeah.
waffling.
So
What's the rebuttal to
again,
the universe expanding?
Well,
1,500 years ago.
2 points. 2
Go
points.
ahead.
So one, this again, you said foresight or being more aware of. Okay, so let's say.
I never said more
well,
aware.
one
I said
second, one
foresight
second.
or extreme
Let's
intelligent
say, for example, that Satan possesses more knowledge than humans at the time of 7th century Arabia because
Yeah.
he was able to experience how he would have had a knowledge of how the world was created, right?
Okay.
Okay. So, if you agree to this, therefore, an inductive case that because this verse in the Quran was supposedly unknown to people, which I can argue is not ultimately the case, to the people at 7th century
You just said it was
Arabia.
unknowingly not the case. Who knew about it?
Yes, one second. I'll get back to that in a moment because my first point is that this case can also prove that this is from Satan. Why? Because Satan would have had knowledge of the universe expanding.
Okay, so then basically all knowledge of the world given to any prophet could have been from Satan then.
Exactly.
So your argument shoots yourself in the
exactly.
foot.
It's a reductio for an inductive case to be true of the Quran.
So you're shooting
Because
yourself in the foot with that your own
exactly.
argument.
Yeah. Tu quoque, fine. So an inductive case for the Quran to be of God does not demonstrate that Muhammad's a true prophet. Why? Because it leads to absurdity. It demonstrates that the Quran can also be provided as an argument towards the agent giving the Quran can be from Satan or be from an angel, because Satan, like you conceded in your conception of Satan, had knowledge of the universe expanding. Secondly, I believe there's going to be propositions.
I never said Satan had knowledge of the universe expanding.
Wait, was
Well, you're answering your own.
okay?
You're
Does
talking to yourself.
Satan possess? Yes, you did, and we can look at the recording in a
I
moment.
don't know what knowledge Satan has. I have no way of analyzing Satan's
Okay,
knowledge.
so Satan, did he not yet prostrate to, well, he was told to prostrate towards Adam, right?
Correct.
In the Garden of Eve.
How does that tie into the universe
It
expanding?
ties in that if Satan lives longer than humans, he possesses more knowledge of humans, therefore extraordinary knowledge that someone in 7th century Arabia would have not been able to possess. This inductive case can be proven that this is also of Satan.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it
No,
is.
it opens the possibility, but it doesn't prove that it is.
Exactly. Inductive cases are possibilities. You're arguing premise one. The Quran possesses knowledge.
Wait. Possibilities doesn't mean that it's certain. Like that.
Yeah, exactly. You're posing a possibility. This isn't inductive.
No. You
This
posed a
isn't-
possibility.
This
I
isn't-
didn't.
Exactly. Your argument is.
I said.
Argument.
In order for us to have back and
your
forth, you need to
argument
know when
is
to stop
inductive.
talking and listen.
Your argument's inductive.
Okay, whatever. Listen.
Your argument doesn't.
My
assert-
argument is this.
Yes.
Can you just
yes.
relax a bit?
Yes.
You're a bit too,
Yes.
My argument was this. The universe expanding
Yes.
is something that no one had could verify at the time, and most humans were not thinking of. So that is my argument that it came from a being,
Yeah.
which we call God, right?
that's a-
your rebuttal was.
That's a
Your rebuttal
probability.
was.
Can you not agree firstly that
Brother,
this is an argument on
relax. Brother,
probability?
can you relax, please?
No. So what
Can
is
you
the
re-
nature?
Brother, can you relax?
What
Can
is
you
the
just relax
nature
for a
of your
second?
argument?
This guy has something.
So what?
Just relax. Brother, just
What
relax.
is
Just
the nature
brother,
of
just
your
relax.
argument?
Your rebuttal was
Yes.
that Satan he's lived since X, Y amount of time, so he has extreme knowledge, extreme intelligence, more than other human beings, which I agree, he possesses a massive amount of knowledge, right? However, that does not mean just because Satan has more knowledge than humans, that definitely means that Satan provided Muhammad with this
Wait, hold
information.
on. So you cannot. This argument for this being of God is a probabilistic argument. It's not a epistemic certainty. Right?
Do you have a would you say you're well educated in science?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're well educated in science,
And I
right?
believe that the Quran is not
No,
scientific.
look, brother, relax. You're well educated in science,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Brother, the sun is hot. Sorry? The sun is hot. Yeah. Right? I am okay. I have an okay level of education in science. He has more. I would guess that he has more education in science than I do. Okay. I just told you the sun is
not
hot.
conceding that this
Does
argument
that
is
mean that the
probabilistic.
person that has more education told me that to tell you?
Well, of course, it's a probabilistic argument of source criticism.
I don't know what
But
you're
hold on,
talking about, so I
you
can't
understand
No,
that your argument is
Brother,
a
can you
massive.
just relax? Can you just relax?
You're appealing
Why
to
are
the
you
audience.
so worked up? Why are you
So,
worked up?
but my
I'm
issue
appealing
is.
to
My
intelligence.
issue
I'm appealing
is
to I'm appealing-
your
Brother,
argument
can
for
you
the
just
Quran to be
relax?
true is an inductive
Brother,
argument.
can you just
It's
relax?
a probabilistic argument.
Brother, can
It's
you
a
relax?
logical leap to say there's a certainty that Allah gave this message
this guy
because
can't
of
relax.
unlearned knowledge.
This guy can't relax. So look, I brought him an argument, right? He said to prove that Muhammad is a prophet. I said he was given information. Yeah, I think he's on. I said he was given information.
Well, we could talk about why I
Before
believe
anyone else
Muhammad's a
had the
false
time,
prophet afterwards.
right? I said the universe
Oh,
is
why not? Because I
expanding.
heard you've been talking about me behind the camera. So if you want to speak on me behind the camera,
What did I say behind the
happily.
camera? Let's
So
hear it.
here's the thing. Your argument is not certain. It's a probabilistic argument. It's to say that there's going to be properties which could suffice revelation
Bob,
from
I'll
God.
tell you what. You have
Therefore,
a very
it
nice day.
is from God.
Bob. I'll tell you what. The next time you think of debating,
Yeah.
stay at home and look in the mirror because you just love talking to yourself.
Okay.
Have a nice day.
Yeah, so very simply, the reason why I was interrupting him is because he failed to see what nature of the argument he was posing. It was an inductive case. It is a probabilistic argument that there are properties of God's revelation which could be sufficed within the Quran. Now, to say this, I could use a reductio and say that this argument can pose that the Quran is also from Satan or also from an angel. So you don't know the argument that you're posing. If the argument that it has to be from God because of this information within the Quran, that is a massive logical leap, and you're just assuming that it can be exclusively from God. That would be a deductive case, not an inductive case. Well done.
Okay, Bob, I'll tell you what. I can engage with you if you suddenly gain the capability to have an actual back and
If
forth
you can
dialogue.
concede,
This guy can't even let me finish the sentence.
if you did finish.
Finish the sentence.
You can
I
make
can't
your
even
point
finish the
after
sentence
letting
with
him.
this guy.
No, firstly,
Like, I agree with you.
yes.
But I think you can let him speak.
So
and also
my
make your
issue
point
with
as
that
well.
is that if you're not going to actually consume the knowledge that I'm saying, that firstly this argument's going to be inductive, it's not going to pose a certainty, and he's not going to listen in the case of that you're going to have to concede that the Quran poses an equal possibility that it's also from Satan. Now I can concede that I have
is 100%.
well, I'm not going to say that.
I agree.
I'm
just saying
rather
that
going to
you
say
can listen to him and also make your point as
absolutely,
well.
and I'll concede that I'm always absolutely rude as well. But this is the third time within our conversation that
He's considered absolutely rude. Bad boy. I love this guy.
but also listen, this is the third time within my conversation that he's accused me of either LARPing and yapping and then leaving because I'm speaking too much, and also him not being familiar with his position and not even saying if either he holds to divine simplicity. Because holding to divine simplicity, is this going to be the case that then he does not believe that religion is therefore going to be simple? It's complex because his God is ontologically complex.
Well, absolutely. We can't comprehend.
So, again, I can see this to these gentlemen here. I have no idea what their position is. I'm absolutely rude. I need to have manners. I'm just so passionate in dialogue with it.
No, you
Chill
can
out.
be, you
I'm
can be
literally on your
blunt,
side.
direct and sincere to the point, no filter. What's
Exactly.
wrong with that?
I think there's you can
What's wrong with
let
that?
him speak and then he can
Fuck me.
counter his arguments.
Yes,
It's like-
I allow him to
They
speak.
completely
I literally didn't
understand.
say anything
In the
against.
Netherlands,
I
they
don't.
completely
just told
Yeah,
understand.
yeah,
being
yeah.
rude,
Here
so
is the
chill
thing,
out a
boys.
little
I
bit, okay?
really don't like
Chill
when
out.
people are intentionally not going to actually answer my question and instead say, "Well, you're just posing a probabilistic argument." Of course, that's the nature of your argument. I get irritated when people don't actually understand the
You
things
can
that they're
listen to
saying.
him and then kind of
Yeah, well, I don't know who your boys' names are. What's your names?
Marco.
And what?
Theon.
And Theon. Okay, good to see you, gents. Oh yeah, I forgot to shake your hand. Right. Well, yeah. That's the continuity argument I've tried to pose against Islam. And again, I may have seemed a bit aggravated, but I don't like and I get irritated when people don't listen to me. So, God bless.